Mr. Francis NGWEYA is a career diplomat with 17 years' experience in the Foreign Service. Previously, he served in Kuwait from 2011 to 2018 with accreditations in Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. He has also held senior positions in administrative and bilateral positions at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in Zimbabwe. Mr. NGWEYA is currently the Minister Chancellor and Deputy Ambassador at Embassy of Zimbabwe, which has multiple accreditations to Poland, Ukraine, Hungary, Bulgaria, Switzerland, Slovenia, and Romania. Ladies and gentlemen, make welcome to GPAD 2022, Mr. Francis NGWEYA.
I would like to thank the organizers of this forum and also to welcome the excellencies, intellectuals, business people, and I say again, good morning. I've been given a topic here to talk about the economic integration of the SADC countries with a special focus on Zimbabwe. It's a broad topic, but I've decided that I'll just talk about the projects that SADC countries are doing in order to foster integration. And then I'll also talk about how Zimbabwe has been benefiting in this process. And then lastly, I'll give the challenges that the SADC regions has been facing. SADC is an acronym for the Southern African Development Community, which was initially established as a development conference in 1980 for the following reasons. The first reason was to reduce overdependence on apartheid South Africa. And also the next reason was to forge linkages to create genuine and equitable regional integration, to mobilize member states' resources to promote implementation of national and interstate and regional policies, and also as a concerted effort to attract investment to the region in order to create a bigger market and also to make sure that the countries in the region pull up resources to make it bigger. Initially, the region had 9 members, but currently we have 16 member states. The most prominent program that the region is running right now is the SADC Vision 2050 and the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Program, which I'll ask you to allow me to call it RISTIP, just to cut the long word, which is expected to run from 2020 to 2030. The SADC Vision 2050 and the Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan, RISTIP, 2020 to 2030 are strategic plans which seek to deepen regional integration in the SADC region and foster development. RISTIP draws impetus from the SADC Vision 2050, which envisages a peaceful, inclusive, competitive, middle to high income industrialized regions where all citizens enjoy sustainable economic well-being, justice, and freedom. The RISTIP 2020 to 2030 is based on a firm foundation of peace, security, and democratic governance, which is premised on the following pillars, on the following 3 pillars: industrial development and market integration. That's the first one. Infrastructure development in support of regional integration, and social and human capital development. Cross-cutting issues which include gender, youth, climate change, and disaster risk management also form an important component of the RISTIP 2020 to 2030. In each of these areas, the RISTIP 2020 to 2030 provides strategic objectives and outcomes to further deepen integration in SADC. The pillars are prioritized with focus to meaningful, high-impact regional projects. Furthermore, The prioritized projects take into consideration the Secretariat's activities, focusing on critical and impactful interventions to the SADC regions while not overburdening member states with increased contributions, given that most of the member states face economic challenges. The prioritization of risk projects is based on a number of criteria, including regional dimension. That is, the project taking place in 2 or more SADC member states. Single country projects with a regional impact by which the benefits would be shared by neighboring countries through positive cross-border effects. 3, strategic alignment with RISTIP 2020, whereby expected development outcomes contribute significantly to the RISTIP 2020 strategic objectives and outcomes, and accounting for potential cross-sectorial impacts and synergies between sectors. In addition to the specific sectorial projects within the various pillars of the RISTIP 2020 framework, several projects which are cross-sectoral in nature are targeted in such areas as early warning systems, migration, ICT and cybersecurity, resource mobilization, one-stop border posts, etc. These are themes that cut across the pillars and are seen as elements of strategic integration. Hence, the cross-sectorial integrated and nexus approach is employed to create institutional programs as opposed to sector-oriented silo approach. I'll then come to the RISTIP 2020 projects. The first one is the foundation pillar, that is peace, security, and good governance. The foundational pillar includes peace, security, and good governance, and is meant to provide an environment of sustained peace and tranquility that will ensure that the region's aspirations of socio-economic development are safeguarded by a culture of peace, strong governance institutions, and a prevailing rule of law. The priority projects under this pillar include multi-sectorial and integrated early warning system, the SADC migration project, and the review of the SADC infrastructure for defense, peace, and cooperation. The second project falls under the industrial development and market integration pillar, which consists of the following projects: accreditation of pharmaceutical testing facilities, establishment of SADC pooled procurement for pharmaceuticals or medicines, local production and knowledge for the manufacturing of disease diagnosis kits, establishment of regional research and innovation fund, strengthening capacities in technology transfer and intellectual property rights to operationalize the SADC Women in Science, Engineering and Technology Organization, and adoption of innovative technologies for the smart agriculture, including investing in labor-saving, inclusive, and appropriate technologies across the agricultural value chain. The third pillar is infrastructure development in support of regional integration, which includes road transport, SADC trade and facilitation project, weather and climate information services, SADC universal connectivity, that is inclusive ICTs, for all development of diversified financial investment instruments to increase access to concessional funding for infrastructure projects in SADC regional career neutral data center. The social and human capital development pillar is the following projects, which includes regional health information system, digitization of cross-border malaria surveillance, establishment of a regional health organization, operationalization of the SADC Regional Poverty Observatory, SADC migration project, that is to promote the concept of entrepreneurial universities to increase employment opportunities. Under the cross-cutting issues, the focus is on strengthening gender mainstreaming capacity at both regional and international levels, promoting the implementation of the SADC strategy and framework of action for addressing gender-based violence with a focus on prevention of GBV. Promoting implementation of ICT-enabled production and dissemination of regional statistics, youth empowerment programs, SADC skills and employment projects, and disaster risk management, strengthening the Southern African Development Project, which is said to run from 2022 to 2026. Funding. Possible funding Possible financing options underpinning this include member states' contributions, international cooperating partners, and the private sector. I now come to the section where how Zimbabwe has benefited from the SADC, from SADC regional integration. Zimbabwe is a founding member of SADC. It is one of the 9 countries that formed SADC in 1980. And it has played a leading role in the organization. It has also championed the preparation and the adoption of the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap, which is expected to run from 2015, it's running right now, 2015 to 2063. Zimbabwe also has benefited immensely in the socio-economic sector, agriculture, health, energy, mining, tourism, trade, and commerce and communications. This has the potential to transform the region, and it dovetails with Zimbabwe's national development initiatives. Consistent with the collective aspirations and the determination of the people of Zimbabwe to achieve an upper middle income class society by 2030, the Second Republic, that is led by President Mnangagwa, came up with a vision 2030, whereby they expect to see the country reaching a middle income status. And for this, they launched Vision 2030 to chart a new and transformative and inclusive development agenda. Attaining the objectives of Vision 2030 will be guided by the interventions of the Second Republic, which it is undertaking through the current program that is running, which we call the National Development Strategy 1, which is expected to run from 2021 to 2025. We have a second NDS that we are calling NDS 2, which will run from 2026 to 2030, where we expect that we will have reached the middle income status by then. And what you need to note is that this program is aligned to the SDGs and is also aligned to the AU 2063 agenda. On the economic front, SADC under this is implementing its industrialization and integration agenda, which promotes economic growth, reduces poverty, and fosters social development. Zimbabwe is among the 14 member states that are benefiting from projects implemented under the support for industrialization program in SADC. Under this project, products such as personal protective equipment, including face masks, face shields, hospital disinfectants, and medical equipment such as ventilators are manufactured. If you remember, or if you were reading through the internet, you discover that when the COVID started, people thought that people in Southern Africa, especially Zimbabwe, would be decimated, but we managed to come up as the lead countries in preventing the disease. Under Zimbabwe's NDS 1, efficient infrastructure delivered is key in the realization of the national priorities and overall socio-economic development. This will involve restoring basic infrastructure services, including expansion in critical areas, mainly targeting key sectors of energy, transport, water and sanitation, information and communication technology, and housing. Related to this, SADC has created transport corridors, which are critical in supporting socio-economic integration by opening up markets and promoting increased trade. Zimbabwe has benefited from the Chirundu one-stop border post, which was initiated through SADC. Since the introduction of the one-stop border post initiative in November 2009, the crossing time at the border has drastically been reduced, saving most travelers time and huge sums of money, since they no longer spend long periods of time waiting in the queues to cross into another country. In addition, the saving being realized by transport companies is being passed on to the end users, making goods cheaper for consumers in the region. We also have the Kazungula Bridge between 4 countries, that is Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, which is a good example of a successful such a project, which cuts the transit route for landlocked countries. The bridge is already easing congestion and will lower the cost of doing business and boost trade in the wider SADC region. The bridge has the potential to completely revamp Africa's economy and transportation situation in the region. I come to the COVID-19 vaccine. Health is a fundamental human right in terms of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Improved health is central to human happiness, well-being, and economic progress. As health populations live longer, are more productive, and accumulate more savings. The SADC Secretariat, in collaboration with the World Health Organization under the financial support of the African Development Bank, implemented a project towards the COVID-19 pandemic response. Zimbabwe was one of the SADC member states to have benefited in strengthening capacity to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. In response to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in the region in March 2020, the corridor trip monitoring system was adopted as one of the systems to facilitate the management and monitoring of cross-border road transport across borders of SADC. Zimbabwe is among the member states participating in this pilot project. Disaster risk reduction and management strategy. Natural disasters have become prevalent in the region. The SADC Secretariat continues to engage partners, including the German and Japanese governments, European Union, African Development Bank, World Bank, UN, disaster risk reduction, to support disaster risk activities in the region by mobilizing resources for disaster management. These initiatives within SADC strengthen Zimbabwe's capacity to respond to disasters and emergency situations. I'll come to capacity building. In the agricultural sector, SADC is implementing projects focused on poverty alleviation. Zimbabwe is one of the 4 countries that benefited from the capacity building project for the tilapia value chain that was funded by the African Development Bank. On agro value chains, Zimbabwe is part of an ongoing regional detailed mapping and analysis on cotton, rice, soya, and wheat value chains. The objective of the analysis is to identify opportunities for upgrading the value chains to increase regional production and intra-regional trade of the commodities. Furthermore, Zimbabwe is also benefiting from capacity building and technical support in development of its leather value chain in Bulawayo. The program was launched in July 2022 through a 500,000 SADC grant support for Zimbabwe and Tanzania. The project will run for 2 years and includes an assessment and optimization of the turnout process and subsequent the promotion of market for leather waste to value. Upcoming SADC projects. These are not exhaustive, but the ones that I found most impactful are the Loma Hasha and Namacha cross-border potable water supply between Eswatini and Mozambique. And this will provide water between the 2 countries. We have the Beira Port development. This is a multi-purpose terminal construction, container terminal expansion, construction of WAF 11 and WAF 11B, including paving an area of more than 20 hectares and construction of a fertilizer terminal, and this supporting infrastructure, rehabilitation, and expansion of the fuel terminal. I come to the challenges now that are being faced by SADC. If you're listening to the last speakers, you hear that most African countries have been relying on commodities. That is raw materials. If you attend any conference in Germany right now, you cannot hear a company saying, we want to go to Zimbabwe and do value addition. Everyone else who is outside Africa, they want to come to Africa so that they can get raw materials. When the prices of these raw materials on the international market fall, you know what happens. The countries that are exporting this, they suffer. So Africa is relying, most SADC countries specifically, they rely on one commodity. And there is need to move away from this. There is need for value addition so that when you sell the product outside, there's more value, and you also generate industries down the chain so that you can employ a lot of people. Then we also come to the issue of the need to diversify markets. If you are exporting to China today, you are exporting to Russia, or you are exporting to Ukraine, what happens when there's a problem there? You lose the market. And then you don't have anywhere else to sell your product. If you look at what the Europeans are doing today, they were focusing on Asia and the East. But now they realize that they also have to focus to Africa because there are problems in the East. So there's need to diversify markets, and over-reliance on one market can cause a lot of problems. If you listen to my presentation, I did not talk about problems, but everyone who knows SADC will tell you that there are constraints in domestic infrastructure in many countries. If you ask investors in Germany, for example, they will tell you that in Africa, you know, the road system is not good. You know, you don't have electricity, you don't have these roads, you don't have this infrastructure. So there's need to develop infrastructure in Africa so that we can be able to talk from one area. If you talk to Germans, they'll ask you that they cannot go there because there's infrastructure. But if you look at the Chinese right now, the Chinese have discovered that you need to create infrastructure in order to benefit from the region. So I'm urging our German friends that you need to go down there and then you need to help create the infrastructure on the ground. Then perhaps you can reap from the region. And every area where there is benefits, there are always risks. These are one of the risks. Then certain countries need to harmonize their trade policies. You know, do away with bureaucracy at the borders, do away with the different tariffs that they have. You discover that most SADC countries, they export more to the European Union than among themselves. The intertrade between our SADC countries is not as defined as it is with the EU, for example, with the UK, with China, with etc. So they need to improve in this area. The SADC Monetary Union, those who have been reading around, you know how this dream was shelved. It was supposed to have been completed by 2018. But when the Greek problem started, when the SADC countries realized that the EU is trying to bail out the Greeks and they are using billions of dollars, they looked at themselves and said, are we going to be able to bail Zimbabwe with billions of dollars? And they also looked at their currencies in the regions, which are not uniform. So because of this, the dream was shelved. And instead, SADC concentrated on industrialization, which is what it is trying to do right now. I think I will end here. Thank you so much.